Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together on our around the world journey. This week we were in a round robin of countries.
We were.
The Netherlands, Belgium, Austria, and Switzerland. So we kind of hit a little bit of everything. It was kind of our cleanup for our around the in the
Calling it a European cornucopia.
Yeah, a little bit of the north, a little bit of the south. So we had a great time. It was two distinct regions, one very flat and one is very mountainous. And so we kind of took advantage of that, really focusing on the nature, specifically the Alps for Switzerland and Austria. And then for the other countries, we did a little bit of food and a little bit of art. And so that was kind of our focus for this week.
Yeah, we always try to choose just a couple things since we are doing this with our kindergartner and trying to do, of course, 4 countries and so many different cultures.
A lot, yeah.
It's kind of a breadth of things, so we try to focus down, and those are the areas that we decided.
They're going to be surprised how much we crammed in. I think
we did do quite a bit, but let's show them the books.
All right, let's get the books. So Silas's 7 grandparents. Now this was a
recommendation for Torchlight. Torchlight had 2 book recommendations for this study, and this is one of them.
The story is very cute. It was very enjoyable. It's about a young boy who has a lot of grandparents, and they're all vying for his time, and he has to kind of deal with that. And he comes up with all these really creative ideas on how to bring them to him. One of the things I didn't really understand about this book was its connection to one of these countries. I think one of the grandparents they were from the Netherlands, and that was basically the only connection to one of the countries that we studied. But that being said, our oldest really loved this book. She went through it a couple times. We read it a couple times. So I would recommend it, but I don't necessarily know if it's something you would want to read for this country. I actually thought it was a book that slipped in from the library,
right?
And I didn't know if it was for the country studies, but it was. So
yeah, sometimes I'll slip in extra kindergarten books, like, oh, I heard this book was cool, just read it. And yeah, this is one. So it seems like it's a pretty loose connection. I think that there are better books that can speak to these countries that we'll recommend over this one. It was good, but I think you could read this anytime. This really would be, I think this would be a fun one to read at the beginning of an around the world study where you're talking about how even if you live in the United States, how much of a multicultural background you could have in your grandparents.
And his grandparents were actually like from everywhere. And so it was actually a really cool, like maybe what you said is kind of an intro to your around the world study as opposed to maybe something for the Netherlands. That was just something that we keyed in on. We just saw as an observation.
Yep.
Next one is Vincent Can't Sleep. Now this is a biography of Vincent van Gogh. Very cute and playful. I thought the artwork was very beautiful. They touched on very slightly some of the mental illness issues that he suffered from, but in a very, I think, age-appropriate way. Beautiful pictures, had nice little touchstone into who he was and what he was about and all his artworks. We had a side book as well. We have a book that has all his paintings. What was really nice is as we were reading this book, my oldest was thumbing through the book of his paintings, and she was finding them throughout the book. So they were like staging some of his famous paintings through like the biography of what he experienced. So really good book, really nice.
And this is we just have a standard book of Van Gogh paintings. It's just an adult level coffee book, coffee table book.
Yeah, it's a little one. That then moved into one of our new favorite books. We've been using this for this week, and we're going to be using this for Spain as well.
These are so good.
These are so good. They're very playful little biographies, nonfiction biographies of the artist or performer. We've had them for music. We now have them for artists. Again, his paintings are on various pages. And again, my learner was flipping through the book trying to find the photos as I was reading it to her. This was really, really good. Really captured her imagination on what the art looks like and who he was. I think these are good pairings. These 2 books, I would pair these together. And then we should jump into it. We did a little artwork.
That's right. Yeah, well, I want to say with this, one of the things that we have been doing lately is reading a fictional account of the artist or musician and then reading this book. So the fictional account, our daughter gets into the story, and so she's really into that artist. And then as we walk through kind of the facts of their life, even though this is told in a fun way, I think she gets more out of it because we've already done a fun, a picture book story look at the artist already. Exactly. So we like to do one first and then do this one second.
Exactly. And so what was nice about this, we took the book, obviously the biography, then we took the nonfiction biography here as well. and then we went and did a little bit of artwork. Now this is like, we're not going to be grading little kids' artwork, but it was pretty good.
She did a pretty good job.
I helped her out with it a lot. We were doing. What was really nice about this is I did the initial drawing.
You sketched it.
I gave her the colors, and I said, here's the picture. We pulled up the image of Starry Night, and we watched a video about Starry Night and the reasons of where this was painted and why it was important. This is when he was in the conservatory or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember what they call it. It was like an asylum.
Basically. In essence, yeah. And when he was going through his issues, he did his famous painting, Starry Night, while he was there, looking out the window, sort of, but from a different part of the building. Anyway, regardless, what was really nice about this is we took a really difficult painting, something way above my level and my daughter's level, and we did it together. Yeah. And that's what I thought was really fun about it. And just maybe as a recommendation to you is that if you do kind of blend the literature with the art, do it together with them. I thought it was a really great experience. It took us multiple days to get to this far. We're still not done. We're going to continue on it. But it was a great experience. A couple times she quit. She goes, "This is too hard, Daddy." But we always kept coming back to it, and I think she enjoyed it. It
was kind of fun. They worked on the project. It's different sections of the painting throughout the week, and so that was kind of a fun way to come back. And
it was a good push on her perseverance on a difficult thing to do.
Right, and I think it kind of struck home the thought that art isn't easy. No. It takes work, and that artists work really really hard at that.
Even though that only took them a couple hours to paint.
Yeah.
Took us a few hours to paint.
So I think it's a good lesson for her to come back and keep working on a project like that.
Well, and what's cool is one of the first times we did artwork that we came back to. Normally times when we do painting, we just we're done, we quit, and we put it away.
Right.
This is one of the first times we actually just kept coming back and back to it. I enjoyed that process, and I would encourage you guys to do the same. Yeah. So, famous woman from the Netherlands, Audrey Hepburn.
From Belgium.
Belgium, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, Netherlands.
She's from the
Netherlands.
I thought she was Belgian.
Oh, we're gonna fact check Ariel. Why?
Oh, I thought she was Belgian.
I want right here.
Oh, okay, Netherlands.
Yes.
Sorry, kisses. Okay, so Audrey Hepburn from the Netherlands. We really enjoyed this book. This was a good look at her life. We looked at some clips from her movies, and
this is the Little People Big Dreams series. So there's a series of these.
Right, really great pictures, and it talks about more than just her life in the movies. There's the time when she's working with the Resistance, and then later she's a UN Goodwill Ambassador, I believe, and so. This kind of covered her whole life, and I thought it was a really fun way to look at it, totally age-appropriate with everything. Whenever we're dealing with these countries, right, World War II is always kind of like on the fringes of all. We just finished Germany, and for us, we're talking about it, but in a more abstract way because our daughter's only in kindergarten. So it's really difficult to kind of get into such a big and complex subject with such a young child. So I like the way that these books... they talk about those issues, but they don't kind of get into all of it. That's a more major study for another time.
Exactly, I agree. So very fun, very very cool. We got to look at a lot of great pictures of Audrey Hepburn looking beautiful in the movies, and my daughter was like, "Oh wow, this is amazing! I like this girl. We should watch more movies." Like, "Oh yeah, Funny Face, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yeah, you guys can watch them."
So really enjoyed this one.
All right, next one, Netherlands.
Yes, this is Netherlands. I knew that one.
Pedal Power. It's a story about an activist in the Netherlands who helped, drive a movement of basically taking cars out of the city and getting the bicycles back in. And if you've ever been to Amsterdam or any of the cities in the Netherlands, especially in that northern area, even in Belgium as well, they love their bikes. They love being on bikes. There's bikes everywhere in the city. And I really kind of got into that, and I was able to spend a little bit of time, showing pictures of when we were in Europe and pictures of all the bikes and stuff. So it was actually a nice way to kind of pair those two together. This was a very fun book, very cute, and it got us out on our bikes riding around. Next one, obviously, we've been pushing the Exploring Countries book. So obviously this is Austria, and that one's Belgium.
These are great. If you haven't watched our other videos.
We just love these books, yeah.
These have just kind of perfect information for early elementary kids. It's at their level, and so we really enjoyed.
Yeah, we just want to keep recommending these and keep pointing them out. I read both of these to my daughter this time. We always recommend the other one as well, but it's always a little bit above her level. It was good we just had these this week. It was a good, it takes you about 10-15 minutes to get through these.
So the picture books we've looked at so far, Netherlands, and then this is Austria, and this is the only book actually that we could find in our library for Belgium, which was a little bit unfortunate. So we had to supplement with our recipes and some of our pictures and things that we're going to talk about later, because unfortunately this was the only book that we could get a hold of for Belgium.
But if you have a book that's on Belgium, put it in the comments below. We're happy to add that as well.
We sure are.
And then we went to the great tragedy of the Raiders Super Bowl game, like Super Bowl 3 or 4, when they cut to Heidi.
So there wasn't a chapter book recommendation for this week. There was just 2 picture books. And I mean, we can't study, so it's early to talk about Heidi, right? So we decided to read this Great Illustrated Classics version of it. We're really fond of the Great Illustrated Classics. These work really well.
Paired.
Yes.
With the Shirley Temple version.
So we watched
Heidi.
Shirley Temple version that we got from the library with this book. You know what? I actually had never read Heidi, and I think I remember seeing the movie when I was like a very young child. This is an incredibly wholesome, uplifting book about kindness and generosity, and this is a lovely book. If you haven't read Heidi yet, get to reading Heidi.
You'll find these at thrift all the time.
Oh, yeah,
so if you're big on thrifting, you'll find these Great Illustrated Classics, the hardbound. Sometimes they have a paperback version available once in a while. A lot of times you find the hardbound ones. We've been collecting these for a few years now.
Right. So this is really nice because it's a scaled down version of the book, so it's more accessible for our young daughter. You can also find these probably from your library on audiobook. I mean, there's lots of versions of Heidi that you can find in some picture versions.
And if there's some literature you want to read that you really don't want to stomach through, get to the Great Illustrated Classics. It does a pretty good job.
They do a pretty good job. Our daughter loved this book. I would highly recommend it. It was totally a really wholesome, great book.
And then the
Shirley Temple version held up for 1937. I have to say, held up incredibly well. I was trying to find the Jason Robards version.
And it's colorized too.
Yeah, I was trying to find the Jason Robards version from '92 from Disney, the Disney miniseries. I couldn't find it anywhere, and so rather than go with some alternate version, I just went back to this one, and I gotta say it was pretty great. Although it was a little scary at one point where there's a change in the movie from the book where the mistress of the head of the household tries to sell Heidi to the gypsies, which wasn't in there, and I had to like laugh because my mom used to tease me when I was a child that if I wasn't good that she would sell me to the gypsies, and now I know where that came from. This is of course culturally insensitive.
I'm burying all the dad jokes.
Right. So
burying them deep.
Just know that of course, you know, there was this stigma about nomadic people and gypsies, people, and that's obviously not culturally sensitive and all that stuff. So we did have to have a talk about that after we watched the movie. So if you watched the 1937 version, just be aware that that's in there and that you might have to have a discussion about that with your learner. But it wasn't in the original book, so or at least not in the Great Illustrated Classics version.
Mystery of the Ballerina Ghost.
Yeah,
this was a hot book during this read along. Very hot book.
This is a series called the Pack and Go Girls Adventures, and they have a whole bunch of them for different countries, and they didn't have it in our library, so I had to buy this one. I just bought one to see if I would like the book. It's kind of one of these typical early elementary, it's a kind of a mystery that the main character needs to solve. What I really love, this is set in Austria, I really loved how much culture they brought into this book about throughout the mystery. It was cultural, about food and dance and dress and all the things, right? So I thought they did a really good job of bringing in factual information into a fun story, and my daughter loved this book.
She really did. She kept going on about it.
Right. So if you see any other Pack and Go Girls Adventures, we have tons of them recommended in our resource guide as options for you to look at. I really liked this one, and I think that the others would probably be interesting to check out. So.
The hills are alive. We had to get a little movies.
It's Austria. How can you not study the sound of music? I love the sound of music. I have the big display box thing that has the book and all the parts, and I loved it. So anyways, this was just, it's fabulous. And the Blu-ray version was on our huge TV, was great. Both my girls loved it. Of course, it's classic. We talked about not getting too much into World War II. Obviously, The Sound of Music does get more into it. So we did have to have some discussions with our learner about that before we watched and after we watched, so that she could kind of understand the context about the takeover of Austria without going into everything. but just so she'd understand the story. But this is classic, and it has such beautiful vistas of Austria and Salzburg, and it's wonderful. Of course, I love The Sound of Music. It's my favorite.
I got nothing to say about that one.
He didn't watch it with us because it's The Sound of Music.
Anyway, next we moved on to videos, better videos. We did a whole little line of Van Gogh stuff. There's a great little 15-minute documentary on Van Gogh's life that was very kid kind of level. That was really good. We also saw there's been a kind of a traveling art exhibit of Van Gogh's artwork called the Van Gogh Experience. And there's a lot of people get to bring in their cameras, so you actually they filmed the whole experience, and basically you sit on these big seats and these benches and chairs, and they project up his artwork in kind of almost like motion, like it's like an animated thing. It's beautiful. Pick up a couple videos on YouTube on it and put it up on the screen. It's really cool to watch, and you can see all his artwork, and it's all moving. It's like lifelike. And that was kind of the thing about his artwork, is that everything looked like it was moving and it was flowing. So that's what they did with the artwork. It was very beautiful.
I think the thing with Van Gogh to just be careful about is obviously he did have lots of mental illness issues and did die by suicide. And so we had to be a little bit careful about the videos and things that we chose, just to not be scary for our kindergarten learner.
Yeah, just pick some, just go into it knowing that is an issue, and maybe kind of, segregate that stuff off that might not be appropriate.
Yeah, depending on the sensitivity of your learners.
Then we did a lot of gondola videos. There's a lot of wonderful gondola videos of going through Austria and Switzerland. We showed a bunch of those. That was a really hot thing to be able to watch, take first-person video of a bunch of, literally taken off the ground and flying through the air. It was just some fun little silly videos that they really enjoyed.
Beautiful. And
then we did a lot of skiing and winter sports videos as well for Austria. We talked a lot about they hosted the Olympics in Innsbruck a long time ago. Really beautiful videos of that. So kind of seeing like the modern sports videos of how, almost scientific it looks like, technically and scientifically it is. Back then they were still on wooden skis and things like that. So it was a nice change, and see like how old the sports were and how more rustic and rugged they were, and then how more like technical, they're really on the edge now with all the technology. So it was a nice little side to side on that one. So then we went into food, because we always go into food.
And this is where we leveraged Belgium.
Yes. When we went to Belgium, we went to Bruges, and we went to Chez Albert, just off to the left of the high tower.
Sugar. It's in the pantry.
It's in the pantry. She bought, there's this Belgian special sugar. Yeah.
Okay, so just to know,
we made Belgian waffles
in the Global Cooking Class Global Feast book, which we've been using throughout this whole study. There is a Belgian waffle style recipe. That's a batter. And when we were actually in Belgium, we were really surprised, because it's not a batter. It's actually a yeasted dough. Yeah. Kind of like you pulled it out almost like it was a roll that was proofing or something. Put it in the iron and then did that. So I looked it up, and they actually use a special kind of compressed beet sugar, pearl sugar, that I ordered from Amazon, and I'll put a link in the show notes so you can see what we ordered. I'm sorry, I was going to grab it from the pantry for the video, but I forgot. Anyways.
Just imagine a bag full of sugar.
Well, but it's these big granules. It's these big granules of sugar. They're really large, little like pebbles of sugar.
Like pearls, yes. Like little mini
pearls.
And
they don't melt. They actually just caramelize when you put them in the iron. So we didn't actually have a Belgian press. We only have a Mickey Mouse waffle maker. So our Belgian waffles weren't perfect, but we used yeast in the dough and all of that, and made them.
Turned out really good.
They were super delicious. So we'll post a link to the recipe that we used, but we didn't use the one out of the book because, you can certainly use that one, but we were like, this isn't right. This isn't what we experienced. So, we went to some of these countries, and we did look at the pictures and videos and things that we had taken as well, which was fun. And we did a Google Maps walk to how to get to Chez Albert, and looked at the line and tried to show our daughter, what the setup would look like if you were in Belgium and you were getting a real waffle from them.
Very cool.
Didn't look like half of Mickey's face. So.
or look at the big M with the Mickey. We thought it was like McDonald's arches.
Yeah. Because the Mickey thing is really big, and these
doesn't
are small.
matter.
Anyway,
we closed our eyes and we were transported back. We were transported back to Belgium. This was a really fun week. We did a lot of different stuff, so we were kind of all over the place. Our whole review here is all over the place.
But it was fun and tasty.
It was fun, tasty, and enjoyable. We had a lot of art. We saw a lot of beautiful things. We're off to Spain and Portugal, which I love Spain. Spain's beautiful.
Yeah, we've been to Spain and
We've been to
loved
Spain.
it.
Loved it. If I retire somewhere, we'll go to Spain. No?
No.
Maybe. Anyway, we'll see you next week, week or two in Spain.